we can't take ourselves too seriously. And maybe that needs to be a new script that we start telling ourselves as midlife moms.
Find what makes you laugh. You may have to hunt for it. Keep laughter on the horizon, but what is good and healthy and makes you laugh?
Life is going to be okay. And I think that's what we just need is to know life really is going to be okay.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Midlife Mom podcast. We are so glad you have joined us. My name is Amelia Rhodes. I'm your host, and joining us today is our co-host, Brenda Yoder. Brenda, welcome.
Thank you. And we want to welcome our listeners today.
We're so excited you've joined us, and we have a fun topic ahead. I'm really excited about this topic. Today, our episode is all about laughter, and laughter matters.
I'm excited to talk about why laughter is so necessary at this stage of life, because if you aren't laughing, you're either crying. There really isn't much in between.
This is so true. One of the things I remember about my mom in this stage of life is she always had something that was making her laugh. And she would listen to Christian author and comedian Patsy Clairmont on the radio. And I would be driving with my mom thinking, I'm a teenager. I'm like, what on earth is going on? She's just laughing until she's crying about Patsy taking her mom to the doctor's office. And I just remember thinking, I really don't get this, but I'm glad it's making her happy. And then a few years ago, one of my first signals of entering midlife was I was diagnosed with a hypothyroid. And I remember feeling like my grandma because she had a bad thyroid and her whole life, struggled with this. And so I remember thinking, one, I'm old. I feel like my grandma. I'm going to have this for the rest of my life. And I was really discouraged, afraid. And then I went to a conference and saw Anita Renfroe, Christian comedian, speak. And she did this whole bit on her thyroid and just blame it on my thyroid. And all of a sudden I remembered my mom and all of those things she would laugh at, and it clicked. I'm like, I get it. Laughter is important, and being able to laugh at these things that happen in midlife. And that just completely eased my tension. It brought joy to my life, even in the midst of this thing I wasn't happy about. And it helped me know I could cope going forward.
Yeah, I too remember. So it's just kind of fun because my mom is the generation above your mom. So my mom is in the lost generation, which just recently they've been declared that generation between the those who were in World War II, the greatest generation, and the boomers. So your mom is a baby boomer. My mom is in between that. And then so I too, growing up, my mom watched and listened to Erma Bombeck. And I actually bought some of Erma Bombeck's books or checked them out from the library when I was really wrestling with what's going on in this stage of life. And there really wasn't a lot out there for humor for women in midlife. And so I picked up the books that my mom had read. And because what you just said is true. Like in the back of my mind, when I turned 50, which wasn't that long ago, I just do want to say, I kind of had this thing of like, well, I might as well be 75. Like I just felt old, but I had to laugh about it. Like everyone then who was in their 70s talking to me, I was like, oh, like you're my best friend because I'm almost your age. And someone kind of called me out on that, like, Brenda, you're not that. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, we're all kind of lumped together now, aren't we? Like, but you kind of have to laugh. You have to laugh at yourself and with yourself, because it just really is essential. We can't take ourselves too seriously. And maybe that needs to be a new script that we start telling ourselves as midlife moms.
I think so. So one of the things we want to do is, because this is so important and it's so healthy and helpful, we want to have a segment opening each episode where we talk about laughter matters and what's making us laugh, and share that with our listeners. And we would love for those listening to the podcast to share with us the things that are making them laugh, and just be this community of here's the things that we're chuckling about in this stage of life. So I want to ask you, Brenda, what is making you laugh this week?
Well, I have to say, I have to wear a mask every day when I go to school. So I do work part-time as a school counselor for an elementary school. So we have to mask up every day. And then when I take my mask off, there are just a ton of hair, like around that part of your face, like a chin hair that, I'm like, holy cow, where'd that come from? And then just looking. And I just remember when I was in my late 30s and I was tanning and I was, a little bit more into my looks then because I was finally done having babies. And I just remember then realizing every beauty thing you do, like it pops out something else, right? Like you tan and then it gives you wrinkles. And then the tan around your face shows all of those mustache hairs. And now wearing a mask is a great way to hide all of the growing hair that's all over that part of your body. So now we're filming this on YouTube. So I had to clean up my chin hairs.
Sorry, I'm too busy laughing. Oh, so funny. What is it? I think you told me in conversation that like a mask covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah, it does. It's great. And you only have to do your eye makeup. Like that's the other thing is like I put on my foundation. Who needs to tan? Because half your face is covered up. And so you just have to like put on your eye makeup and that's about it.
Get ready in half the time. That's great
Yeah.
because I'm finding it take longer to get ready these days.
Yeah.
So the things that are making me laugh these days are my kids. I'm enjoying these seasons where they're teenagers. I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. And I'm just enjoying how uncool they think I am. And I'm embracing that. And I love being zany and wacky and just them being like, Mom, the eye rolls, the you're not funny. So the recent conversation the other day, I was taking my son through McDonald's drive-through after an appointment was something about money. We got talking about money. I can't remember how, and somehow talking about Bitcoin, which I don't even fully understand what Bitcoin is, digital money. And so I was like, I don't even understand. Like, how are the baby Bitcoins born? And he's like, money's not born. And then we got on this whole conversation about economics and money and what is a piece of paper. And I don't even remember how we ended up. We ended up talking about what if we went back to just trading chicken and eggs for our haircuts. So, and we just were giggling all the way home. It made absolutely no sense, but I was laughing till tears came. It was just fun. And it was fun seeing
awesome.
his discomfort at my weirdness too. I love it.
Well, I just have to put a plug in here too that, the whole thing in midlife is that once you become a grandma, then you don't want to be that grandma. And so when our son and daughter-in-law shared with us over a year ago that they were expecting at Christmas, I was so excited. And I went uptown. We have a shop in our town. I live in a very big tourist area here in the Midwest. And there's a shop that sells like sweatshirts that have like the bird houses and stuff like that on them. And so I was up there for another reason, happened to go in that store and they had all their Christmas sweatshirts on sale for like $10. And so I was very tactful. I bought a Christmas sweatshirt, but with one of these, the iron on grandma things. And, but I got one with the iconic is very, very Instagrammy and Pinteresty. It had the iconic, pickup, the red pickup with the Christmas tree in the back. So it was very timeless. So I wore that Christmas morning when they had just shared with us maybe the day or two before that they were expecting. And my kids just flipped out. Mom, what are you wearing? You got a grandma sweatshirt on? And I was like, but it actually has given me freedom. Being a grandma now has given me freedom to be weird. Because
I love it.
when you are parenting teens and young adults, right? Like there's so much mom peer pressure. And so being a grandma has kind of like given me this license now to be all weird that I've always been, but you can't be because your kids don't think you're cool and you don't want to embarrass them. So that's part of this whole thing with laughter is if we really shared what was in our minds, really what we need laughter about, we would like our kids would probably, I don't know what they do with us, but
it's giving us permission to embrace who we really are in this phase of life. Laughter does that. And I think it's so key and important. And it's healthy for our brains, it's healthy for our bodies. And there are so many good reasons to laugh that we want to share about today. And I came across an article recently on Mayo Clinic that lists some of those benefits of laughter and why we need it. And I think in this phase of life, as our bodies are changing and our brains are changing, and we've been in a pandemic, laughter is so important. And just a couple of the things I will link to the article in the show notes, but the short-term benefits of laughter, and this article was called Stress Relief from Laughter. it's no joke. Like, it's real. It brings real stress relief. And we've all felt it after a good laugh and tears out of your eyes, and your body just relaxes, and it does something to your body and your brain. And they said the short-term benefits include stimulating organs like your heart and your brain. There's increased oxygen intake, and it activates and cools your stress response. So that they said it fires up your heart, gets your heart rate going, and then it cools it right back down. And you end up with that relaxed feeling. Who doesn't need a little bit of stress relief right now, right? And they said it also soothes tension by stimulating circulation and aids in muscle relaxation. So forget the spa, just, find a good comedian and have a good laugh. Okay, maybe don't forget the spa, but in addition to the spa. And then long-term benefits: improves your immune system, it relieves pain, it increases personal satisfaction, making it easier to cope with difficult situations and connect with people. And I know that's something that Brenda will talk about shortly. And it improves your mood, which, who doesn't need a little bit of a mood boost in this stage of life? And what I love about that is it backs up what we find in scripture. And in the Bible, in Proverbs 17:22, we read, a cheerful heart is good medicine. And science backs that up, that laughter, cheerful heart is medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. And one thing that we want to address is healthy laughter, and making sure that our laughter is helpful, not harmful, and that we aren't part of crushing the spirits of those around us with our laughter. And Brenda, I know you have some really good thoughts and insight into healthy laughter that's not harmful.
Yeah, I think that there's always this fine line between what is laughing with someone, what is laughing at them. And it's a tough thing because we don't have it modeled well in our community, right? I think everything in culture right now really is about burns and put downs. And if you don't laugh along with something that really is more of a burn, that's kind of what we call it in talking with students at school. In fact, I'm going to be addressing a class coming up because there have been more harmful words of joking that aren't, like, they're just not appropriate. It's hurting people. And I think that's where we have to come back to is what I'm saying, um, is it going to be received? How is that person going to receive it? Like, just knowing them. And so I think that's part of it, is in thinking about laughter with our kids, but then even with other people, is, are they at a place, will they receive what I'm saying? Is what I'm saying something that is going to encourage them and help them not be so serious, not take themselves so seriously? Or is it going to be something that it really is a wound that we know is something that's inside of them? And I think especially with our kids, this is a fine line too. And I've had to check myself a little bit to say, have I joked too much? You know, I think as our kids have gotten older, that's a lot of the way that we interact as a family, is joking with each other. And so then I kind of go to this other part of my brain where I kind of like freak out, like, oh no, did I not teach them to like talk about serious things? Is all we do is joking, and is it harmful? But as I've checked it out with them, I think it's okay. But there really is a fine line there. And it's important that we think through things before we send it in a text, before we even say it out loud. And that's one thing that I have to say. A couple of years ago, I literally watched a couple comedians on Instagram just because I needed to laugh.
Right.
And as comedians, they can do all of that. They can make people laugh in those ways. And then there are times when in my head, like, I'm saying the same things that they are about some of the things that they're probably, mocking or something like that. And then part of me will be like, well, they say it and it's funny. I should be able to say it, right? These are my authentic words. This is really how I feel. But yet I'm like, is that really edifying? Is it edifying to those who hear it? Is it really edifying to me, even though I think that in my head? So there's kind of a filter, I think, that we just have to sift through some of the time.
Right. And I think part of that filter is asking God for wisdom in the moment. And then this question of, will this build them up? Will it build them up, or will it tear them down? And using laughter to build up in a situation, not to tear them down. One of the things that we've talked about too is the difference between laughter and sarcasm. And when I was chatting with my family about this topic, my daughter just kind of looks at me and she gives me the look, the look. It's like looking in a mirror. She's very much like me. The look of like, really, Mom? Okay. And then she says out loud what she's thinking. Are you going to be talking about this, or is Mrs. Yoder going to be talking about it? And it was in that tone of like, you better not be the one teaching about it. So I promised her I would take notes. Obviously, that's a struggle of mine. And sarcasm runs fast and easy in our family, but it does cross a line where it's tearing someone down and it's not funny anymore. And I think you have some thoughts to share about the danger of sarcasm.
Sarcasm actually is one of the main dangers in almost all relationships. Gottman, who is kind of the forefront of marriage counseling, has sarcasm as one of his main, I think there's 4 or 5 killers of a marriage. And so really just taking that thought and bringing that in any relationship. Sarcasm is almost a defense mechanism, and sometimes, so when we use that as a defense mechanism, that means we're really protecting ourselves from something that is hurtful. So I think even in homes, I think we all probably know homes where sarcasm runs through the house. Like, it may not even be sarcasm at each other, but I think sarcasm comes from a place of wounding, or from a place of, yeah, I really want to say something about that, but I'm not going to say what I really feel. So I'm going to say it this way because it feels better to me, rather than refraining from saying it. And you talked about that wisdom of really being able to say, if it's coming from a place where, yeah, I really need to say that because it makes me feel good to have that satisfaction of saying something about that, then it's really something that needs to be taken off the table.
I think you can end up in these tense moments. You're in a conflict, in a relationship, in your family, in your household, and you just need that final word. And it's that lashing out of the tongue. And sarcasm is such an easy thing to slip into. And then it really only wounds rather than making it better.
Yeah. And it doesn't help your relationship. I think that's the other thing is and as we talk about midlife, so whether it's with your parents, right? Because I think we as children can easily get into a role with our older parents where we are sarcastic or something with our parents, or we might say things about them when we're not with them, among our friends. And even there, I think we have to hold that again in our relationship with the Lord, but then also with our kids. So the other thing about raising teens and young adults, as we've talked about, is that it is one of the most difficult times of your whole life. And so sometimes even to cope with the heaviness that is in your home. And I know I'm talking to many moms out there who are experiencing a lot of heaviness in your home. And laughter is essential, but it's not, sarcasm is not the place for it when you're in the middle of all of that tension. So then
Right.
how do you do that? And as I was just thinking about that, I just know there are a lot of times where I may get off a phone conversation with one of my college students, or even, a text message exchange where they're pretty snarky, because that's part of what happens when you're raising teens and young adults, is they can be snarky. And or even adult kids, they can be snarky, and you don't say what's in your head, you
Maybe
know
that's the mantra. Don't say what's in your head.
yeah, but then, the minute my husband may come home, I may like spout off to him in a way that is humorous, because again, it's not taking ourselves too seriously. And I think that we just, as a culture, almost have used sarcasm and so-called burns or laughter in a way that is really, really almost harmful to the extreme, that we don't see that healthy modeling of how to just laugh about life, and how to not take things so seriously, including ourselves.
It's finding the humor in a situation, but laughing with people, not at them, and not targeting the humor at them, I think is one of the keys. And it's a tricky thing to learn, as you said. And I think just being aware, asking for wisdom, paying attention. Ooh, how did that land? Did that not help? Was that not funny? And not letting it linger if you realize that there was a wound that happened.
Yeah. And I think I would just encourage you even take that a step further. Like, how will that land? Like
Mhm.
knowing the person, I think, especially with your kids. The one thing that I've heard from kids as I counsel them, or just work with them and talk with them is often, well, my mom said this. And I think as parents, we do not realize how our words impact our kids. And so even in joking, when we don't have kind of their bank of positivity in them, or we don't have the relationship with them that allows us to joke in that type of way, our words can really wound our kids. And so really it's a lot about knowing, where is that child or where's that person at? Like, where are they even at today? Today, can I say that statement in a joke and they receive it well? We've even had, with our kids sometimes where they're just they have so much heaviness that we even just have to talk with them like, hey, we need to get out. We need to do, some fun things, and we need to laugh. So I think even with kids in the pandemic right now who don't have a lot of positive things coming across their literal experience or their screen because they're in front of a screen the whole time, it's important that we can really try to foster that healthy, non-shaming laughter.
And I think it was key of knowing what you said. Today, can they receive it in this moment? Because we know with teenagers and young adults, it changes moment by moment. And one of the things that I read early on in my parenting from a woman named Barbara Curtis, who wrote some books and had a great blog at the time with her preschoolers, she said, pay attention, be a student of your children. And that carried with me to this day, where I try to be a student of my children. And now it's become subconscious, but even when you walk in the door, even before they say a word, are they okay? Are they not okay? Was it a good day? Was it a bad day? And I remember this moment with my son, who's now middle school. I was picking him up. And as soon as he came out the door from the school, I had studied him for so long that I could tell by the way he carried his shoulders or the way he was walking that he didn't feel good. And so I think it's part of just being a student, a literal student of your children, and paying attention to know in this moment, do they need laughter? Do they need love? Do they need a hug? Do they need a joke? And God gives you that wisdom as you ask for it and as you are a student of your children.
Yeah, and I think even as friends, so we're talking to midlife moms, and kind of circling back to the importance of laughter for ourselves. Here again, I was just reflecting as you were talking about um, laughter and the importance of it with our kids and things like that. But we need it in this stage of life so importantly. And I think that's why it's so hard, is because we're not around friends like we were when our kids were younger. I don't know about you, but when my kids were young, there was a whole group of other young stay-at-home moms, and we got out often. I don't know, it was just whatever, and we'd stay out late, and that release, those friendships were important. In fact, there was one time when one of my college students said to me, like, Mom, are you going to go out with so and so soon? Because you need to. Because I was so grumpy, and they saw that my demeanor changed when I could laugh. And just even thinking to some other life things that are important for moms at this stage is, part of my story is that I left the teaching profession because I was so stressed out, and I was a very irritable, angry, no laughter in our home mom for quite a while. And I went back to graduate school, got a new job. And when I was working at my first job as a school counselor, my son, who was home at the time, he was a senior, and he said, Mom, it's just so good to see you laugh. I know that you love your job. And so I think as we are moms in this phase of life, whether you have kids in the home or not at home, is to be thinking about what can I change in my life right now to bring joy into my life, because our children may drain us. Whatever your family is going through, your children and your family may not be the source of joy for you. And in those cases, we really have to seek out friends who we can vent to. And for me, venting is like being pretty honest about stuff that, is just my feelings in the moment. I think we have this perception, and especially for those of us who are a little bit more in the spotlight as Christian leaders, is that we just have to have everything together. And it's not that we're laughing at inappropriate things, but it's just that we kind of say what's in our head, which is, are you serious? Like, are you kidding me? Sometimes I just want to be like Anita Renfroe, but we don't have that platform. So if
Right.
people think I'm nice, so if I were to say something, even the remotely not quite neat and tidy, they'd probably think,
Right.
what happened?
Safe places to reel and laugh. And I know friendship will be one of our episodes that we will do coming up, and having safe places to laugh. And I know finding that, because you're right, it may not be in the home. And so that would be, I think, one of the keys of finding where you feel safe and where you can laugh and kind of blow off a little steam in a healthy way and have some fun. For me, one of the things has been Friday morning coffee dates for an hour, hour and a half with a couple of friends who are in this phase of life. You talked about getting together with friends when you were younger. When you were younger, your friendship centered around, who you wanted to be friends with, and your kids would all hang out because they were little and they didn't, they were friends with whoever was there that day. As they get older, your friendships kind of shift because your kids may not be friends with your friends' kids, is what I'm finding.
Right.
And so carving out time, whether it's once a month, once a quarter, here and there, is so important because you may not naturally overlap. And so a couple of friends and I, we meet at a coffee shop when we can. And the owner of one of the coffee shops came up to us one day and she said, I just love having you gals in because you just laugh and you laugh. And it reminds me of me and my friends. Mm-hmm. And so that's so important to find people you can laugh with and in a good, healthy way and bring joy to each other.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, laughing at yourself too. We talked earlier in the show about, our physical appearance and some of the things that just come along with midlife that normally we don't want to call ourselves midlife because there are a lot of stereotypes around there, right? That you're older and you're frumpy and you aren't hip and you aren't cool and you are getting gray hair and your body's all, but when I was your age, Amelia, when I was 44, I had just run a half marathon. And that fall, I had this new job at a school, and I played we had a staff student basketball game. And I thought, oh, I don't play basketball, but I just ran a half marathon. I can run up and down the court. So I was out there, and I have two sons who play basketball. And so I literally was like in my moment. I was down there, I was running down the court. And I remember thinking, oh, if only my boys could see me right now. Like, I'm just really rocking it. And my knee twisted and gave out. And I ended up I was pushing myself off the court, and the school nurse had to come with a wheelchair. And I was like, no, I'm fine. But they made me get in the wheelchair and I was in front of 800 kids, 800 fifth and sixth graders. And, I came home and I ended up tearing my ACL. Like, it wasn't just a small thing. I ended up tearing my meniscus, tearing my ACL, had to have surgery, had to go through rehab. And I came home and, at first my kids were like, okay, I just have to say we live on a farm. We have sons in our house and I'm married to a farmer. So like around here, you don't go to the doctor unless it's really, really serious. So they're like, right. Yeah, Mom, kind of just suck it up. And then when we finally found out that it was a torn ACL, I was like, okay, so now it really was. But throughout that whole thing, I just had to laugh.
Right.
Here I am running a half marathon feeling like I've got this midlife stuff, sun in my face, I'm doing this. And then 2 months later, I've torn my ACL and now I'm like, I had to sign off on disability, right? That I'm 7% disabled. And so my kids will throw it in my face, like, remember, Mom, you're 7% disabled. Do you need us to help you walk? So
I love it that you took that and it's become the running joke,
well, it
the
is.
7%.
Yeah, every place we go now, do you need help to get up? Because you are 7% disabled.
It's the matter of perspective. Like we can let that stuff weigh us down. It happened. It was a thing. Or we can let it bring joy and find the gift in the midst of it.
Yeah.
So one of our action steps then for this week, we want to end each week with action matters. So our action for this week, find what makes you laugh. You may have to hunt for it. Keep laughter on the horizon, but what is good and healthy and makes you laugh? What do you have to add to that, Brenda?
I'm just going to share. There are two Instagram accounts, and I don't have these written down, so they will be hard to find. But one of them is Sharon Says So. She makes me laugh. She is a government teacher, and I'm a former government teacher, but I watched her Instagram story. She's very informational, but she is funny too. And then why don't you share some of yours, Amelia, because I want to get back. There's another person on Instagram who mocks influencers.
Oh,
know that I know
one of them I've enjoyed is Michael Jr. He's a Christian comedian who keeps it clean and healthy. And he is the one who has said, when people are laughing, their hearts are open to you. And that stuck with me. I heard him on a recent podcast say that. And so that's the same, I would think, true with our families and our difficult relationships. When we can bring laughter into it, then their hearts are open and you can receive from each other.
Yeah. And we'll just have to put it in the show notes. There's another person I've come across, but that's, I think, where you just said, sometimes we have to pursue it. We have to, whether it's a book, whether it's someone that you can just watch and know that at the end of the day, you're just going to laugh a little bit and let things go. But then also, I think we have to seek out friends. We have to seek out that time with our spouse, even seek out time with our kids to do something fun. And just kind of leaving on that note is that, especially when you have a child that you're really struggling with, to sometimes just take them away some time, just say, hey, let's go to McDonald's or something, and let there not be the tension that's around whatever's happening.
Right.
Use some laughter that is completely out of the blue, has nothing to do with the situation, to just let them know, like, life is going to be okay. And I think that's what we just need is to know life really is going to be okay.
We're not alone. It's okay. We can laugh about it together. So that's your action for this week. Go hunt for humor. Find somebody on social media who's got healthy humor and makes you laugh. Find a couple friends to connect with, a way to connect with your kids or your spouse, and find some humor this week. And we would love to hear what makes you laugh this week. And we'd love to start sharing some of those on the podcast. So you can email us. You can email me, amelia@ameliarhodes.com, and we will put some links in the show notes where you can submit what's making you laugh. So thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.